Welcome to the Divorced and Happy podcast, where we discuss all things Act Two. I'm your host, Sadie Marie. Well, hello to everyone listening. Today's show is such a fun topic, the honeymoon stage. I know prior to my divorce, I attached this magical romantic time just to romantic relationships. But I was pleasantly surprised to learn that this stage of passion and excitement also happens after relationships. There is a honeymoon stage after a divorce, and it is such a wonderful, I'd call it life-giving, delicious, playful time. And speaking of playful and delicious, my guest today is the witty and whimsical Miss Shannon Paul. Hey, Shannon.
Hey, I like being called delicious.
Delicious. Yep. A little bit of delicious.
Delicious is a good moniker. I could do that.
Delicious. She is delicious. Mm-hmm. And I have been looking forward to chatting with you today and swapping our honeymoon stage stories. It's going to be such a treat. Thank you so much for being part of this. I'm giddy. Feeling giddy. How are you feeling? I'm feeling giddy.
It's been a good day over here. It's been a good day. I'm feeling accomplished. I've been working on projects in my home, so
wonderful.
We can get to some of those. Yeah.
Well, speaking of accomplishments, Miss Shannon Paul is a comedian, speaker, radio and television host, an actress, and a social instigator. Dish about that for a little bit. What does it mean to be a social instigator? I love that. I'm a social instigator.
Well, I found that a lot of times I'm the person that's in the room that's trying to get everyone to interact and to feel that it's okay to be outspoken and to be bold and to figure out a way to be that catalyst is something I've always appreciated doing. So social instigating is what I decided to call it that.
I love that. That's a new phrase I've just learned. Thank you so much. And Miss Shannon was named Best Stand-Up Comedian by City Pages Magazine in their 2020 Best of the Twin Cities.
I was very excited about that.
That is fantastic. Congratulations. Campus Activities Magazine included her as one of 8 top speakers in 2015. And Miss Shannon is a regular guest on TV talk shows speaking on diversity and pop culture. I'm just so giddy to connect with you. Now, we had an interesting meeting, you and I. We met years ago at a unicorn party for adults.
Which is interesting because we were at this party, but we were both there in our quote unquote professional roles.
We were. We certainly were. It was a unique professional opportunity. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. Oh, definitely. It's definitely on the top of the list of what's the weirdest gig you've ever had.
Right. I know.
And I feel bad calling it that because it's a friend of mine that threw the party.
Oh, it was amazing. It was extraordinary. It was magical. I would say magical even at moments for me, observing as a photographer, taking pictures.
She is fantastic. And her friends are cuckoo. That's what it is.
Right? I know.
But that's what you want on your birthday.
Right,
She wanted a whimsical, super fun birthday party. And so telling all of her friends to show up in unicorn-related outfits.
Right. And they did that in full force.
They did all of that.
All of that.
I think it's interesting because from my perspective, since I only knew a couple of people at the party other than my friend who threw the party,
right.
It's extra weird anytime you're walking into unknown territory as a performer. And that's usually why I don't take gigs like that. Like I would not have taken that gig if I was not friends with the person throwing the party. And I didn't that was my present to her for her birthday.
Well, it was so fantastic. I remember listening to you and watching the reactions and it was so fun to capture. And I also remember a moment where you and I kind of looked at each other like, is this for real? Are we really getting paid or to be here right now? This is fantastic. Yeah. The unicorn party.
We're hanging out in a penthouse
at the W. I know. And it was a blizzard. Remember it was a blizzard?
Exactly. So we drove in terrible weather to get there. And then, now I'm like, do I have to just stay?
And you talked at that time about being divorced and you had some of that in your bit. And I thought that was fantastic. So I knew when I did this episode on the honeymoon stage after a divorce, I knew that I wanted you to to be a guest, and I'm so happy it worked out. And now from unicorn parties to honeymooning together. This is fantastic.
Right.
Nice.
Right. Well, I like the word honeymooning. I like the word, honeymooning. I like other words like sunsetting things. I think that it's a,
right.
a positive way of talking about something that's a transition, and transitions are difficult. As you're going through them, a lot of times you're not enjoying them, obviously, but it's once you get through it, that you go, okay, I can look back. And it's funny that you bring up that party, and that by then I was talking about my divorce and my previous relationship and my act, when for a while I wasn't. Because remind me, you said that your honeymoon phase started when?
My honeymoon phase really started about a month after my divorce.
How long was the process leading up to when you got divorced? Did you have a long separation period or how long was that?
So my separation was about 6 months. So from the time things started, it took about 6 months to get divorced. So it happened quite quickly. I was fortunate that way.
And did you, when you were at the tail end of the relationship, did you see it coming? Did it happen kind of suddenly? Where were you at?
I was ready for it. I was mentally ready for it, which is why I believe my honeymoon stage came so quickly. Everyone's different. Everyone's different. So talk about when you're...
How long were you married?
I was married 10 years.
Okay, fair enough. Right.
Yeah. So can you talk about when your honeymoon stage developed for you and described what that was like for you?
Well, I think, I was only married for 5 years.
Okay.
And there were some challenges for sure the last year of the relationship that were kind of ramping up. So for me, by the time you saw me talking about it in my act, I was about 2.5, almost 3 years out, because it wasn't just, what am I like now? It's what am I like, period. And figuring out what the definition of Shannon was. Again.
Sure. So it is a discovery. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me about the honeymoon stage, because it sounds like you've had one since your divorce. It just didn't happen immediately after your divorce. Is that what I'm hearing?
Now I'm living my best life. Now I'm totally fine.
Well, let's talk about that. The honeymoon of now.
Well, I'm fine. I'm so fine with it now that I have intentionally made myself difficult to date. And so because I enjoy doing me, hanging out and being myself and doing all this. And I spent a lot of time figuring out who Shannon is. And so now I'm unapologetically me. And so when somebody else comes in and they expect me to compromise, which is a good part about being functionally relationshiped, is being able to do those kind of things.
Absolutely.
I'm a lot more jealous with my time and choosy with my time. And
you can never get it back. That's one thing with time. Right. You can never get it back.
Yeah. So, now, I'm enjoying the fact that I can run around and do what I want. And I don't have to ask somebody else, hey, are you okay if I do this? Or can I go here? Or is it going to hurt your feelings if X?
Right.
And all that stuff is all great. And I think it makes you, I'm not saying that those things are bad. It's just not where I'm at right now. I like being able to run around with my friends when I feel like it, or sit up in my house and play video games, or putz around and go, hey, I got to do this podcast. And I work a lot. It's just that my job doesn't suck. And I'm glad that I don't have to share that time right now consistently with another person, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's I'm okay admitting that I appreciate my time right now and am very, very selective with when and where I allow somebody else to come in and take that time. It's between, my kid, and that's it. He's the only one that gets to co-opt my time right now. I think it's, that part, like you're saying, where it is different for everybody. It's like, well, what a part about it do you like? And what part about, I think what makes the honeymoon phase is what were you missing that now you feel romanced?
I love that.
And so now the things that I felt like I was missing, I've become more accomplished at providing for myself. So I feel like I'm in that romance stage with me. That moment when you're like, oh, I can't wait to hang out with this person.
Yes.
Sounds very narcissistic.
That
but that's
quality
me.
time,
Right.
that bonding time.
Like after I'm done talking to you, I'm going to go upstairs. I've been doing some slight remodels here in my house because I closed on a house a few months ago. So now I can actually do stuff to it. And I'm putting an accent stripe on a wall. And I'm very excited that I get to do that and not have somebody go, where are you going? What are you doing? I decided I'm going to sit in my house and paint my wall tonight.
And no one's going to direct you on how to paint the wall. You can paint the wall any way you want to. Isn't that lovely?
And somebody might disagree with me. I did not have to ask. I just picked some paint and I'm going to do it. And if I don't like it, that's on me. I'll change it.
Absolutely. You have that freedom.
Right.
Oh, well, I love it. So, you know what I remember about my honeymoon stage? Because mine was different than yours in a way. But what I remember, it was like I've been living in a big dark cave and now I was stepping into the light. Mm-hmm. And I remember my senses, maybe you can resonate with this, but I remember my senses just heightening during that time. Like everything looked better and tasted better and felt better. Mm-hmm. Was that like, or is that like how your life is now, where everything's just like the flow, like you're in the flow?
I feel like there's less anxiety. Like right now, there's a lot less, is this going to be okay? You know, am I going to hurt? You know, it's just so much less stressful.
Yes.
For me right now. Like
yes.
I feel like I was in a position of stress, and I think that happens a lot as you're going through the divorce.
Absolutely,
for a lot of
it's exhausting. Absolutely,
exactly. Like you're like, is this going to work out? Is this going to cause a fight? Is this going to cause drama down the way? How can you get through that part and get to that point? And I think that's why I'm appreciating where I'm at right now too, is because there is no drama. You know, I'm very fortunate that I'm to a point that, you know, we adult well, we co-parent, you know, appropriately. There's no drama. It's not every time we have an interaction, I'm concerned that there's going to be another shoe that's going to drop that's going to cause, you know, a bunch of dominoes to call into effect.
Right.
And everybody's miserable.
Right.
Yeah. And
right.
so being able to live that part of your life stress-free, I think is also of immense value.
Absolutely.
And that's the part that I was like, I remember when I got to the part where, you know, for me, it just felt like I was wearing like a weighted vest for a really long time.
And the weight came off.
It came off. And that's when I felt like I got to that honeymoon phase, because you're like, okay, I don't feel like everything's so heavy and I can breathe.
Yes.
And just
that levity. And I remember also just like you said, all of that relief. You have so much more energy. I remember during my honeymoon stage just having like emotional energy I didn't have before, and physical energy I didn't have before, and adventure. Like I just was so excited to have adventure. I took myself on a trip shortly after my divorce, and I went to New York, New York is my soulmate. Do you have a city that's your soulmate, Shannon?
Yeah, Austin, Texas, I still miss.
Awesome. I've never been there, but I'm so glad.
It's wonderful.
I have no doubt. So I was in New York City, and I have a tradition when I go there, I walk the Brooklyn Bridge. And so I was walking the Brooklyn Bridge, and I wanted to hug everybody on the bridge. Like, aren't you so happy? Isn't life amazing? And I did not. I restrained myself. I was not out hugging. Yeah, I know, right? And they thank me too.
Your euphoria.
Beyond. Yeah. But it just that like feeling now that energy again and feeling so alive again. It was incredible. I just loved that about my honeymoon stage. Just having, I felt like I was 20 years younger.
And I felt like when it first started to kick in, I had that feeling of like pride in myself. Like, I'm like, oh, I forgot what it felt like to be like enthusiastic that you were good at something, you know, because it, I think when you're coupled, a lot of times you're more a definition of how the couple does.
Oh, absolutely.
Less than a definition of how you do yourself.
And absolutely.
So to be able to feel accomplished and, just happy that I succeeded at a thing and not feel like I did something wrong because it was my thing, that I remember having the first time. I'm like, oh my gosh, that feels amazing. I'm very proud of me. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong because I'm a me. I'm supposed to be a me, not a us. And so it's nice to be able to first I'm a me again. And
I be stereotyping a little bit here, but I think women especially, we aren't conditioned to be so proud of me, quote unquote. We're more conditioned to think about the other, or if we're in a relationship, to think about the us. But I don't think as women, we are really encouraged to be so proud of, quote, me.
No, and I think we fall into that role just slowly over time, and it's part of the patriarchy that we like live in. And I remember talking to my therapist, before the divorce and after, and I was definitely as forward Shannon as I am. She'd go, well, what do you like and what's going on that's well? And it was always a definition of, well, it was always through the filter of what's going on well for my kid or what's going on for my partner. And it was rarely, I think it's interesting because people still ask me this now. They're like, well, what are your hobbies? And for the longest time, I didn't have any hobbies that were just my hobbies. I had them before I got married. And then slowly throughout the relationship, I just didn't have any me hobbies.
So during your stage now, your honeymoon stage now, do you have some hobbies?
Yes. Now I have all kinds of things that I do that are my things, and that's fine. Like, and they're not even that noble. A lot of them, they're just like, I play video games, and I've kind of always liked video games, and now I play video games again, and I pay attention to sports and I pay attention to these things that I can because they're trivial and they're good distractions. And then I'll go back to being involved in all the important stuff later. And that part I appreciate as well, that I get to go, okay, well, what did you do? I just wasted time playing video games. Oh, I know that I should be out saving the universe, but no, I'm wasting time playing this video game.
Well, that playfulness, it inspires you to do other creative projects. I mean, You're a very creative person, obviously. Did you have, or are you having any fun, if this is your honeymoon stage now, as you've described it, are you having any creative revelations?
I have been able to recreate kind of the way that I look at my comedy and what I can do. Cause I think that we have, especially in this post-COVID world, it's been very difficult for a lot of live performers like myself.
Incredibly so. It really is a game changer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's been actually trying to figure out if and when you decide to go all in on this virtual world has been a constant conversation between me and a bunch of my performer friends. And for me, I really was like, I want to use my art to provide funds to care for my son. And I want to use my art to make the lives of other people better. And so it changed the way that I write and the kind of projects that I super focus on and the kind of events that I choose to be a part of. And that part has been very, very, very enlightening for me. But I had the time to think about it and the time to process it and to come up with that personal mission statement, which I hadn't really taken the time for myself before. And that's the thing, is that now I get to practice taking care of me. And Absolutely. Still, my kid is my primary, responsibility. And don't get me wrong, I lose sleep all the time over taking care of my kid. I mean, I am very, super mom focused as far as that goes.
Well, sure. But you're creating space for yourself where you didn't do so before. And that is a wonderful gift that your honeymoon stage is giving you.
Right.
And that you're giving yourself.
Right.
So I'm a creative person too. I think you learned that about me.
Yeah.
But I will have to say the most creative thing that I did during my honeymoon stage was learning how to creatively stack first dates. I got really good at that, Shannon.
I did that for a minute. Were you doing all the online dating?
I was doing a lot of online dating. I had a friend who challenged me shortly after my divorce to go on 20 first dates within a 2-month period. And so I had to get creative because I didn't have the time to do that without being creative. So I got really creative at stacking first dates. And I had so much fun because the stakes were so low. I wasn't looking at dating to lead me to anything serious. I just wanted to explore what it was like to date again at this stage in life and to learn if I liked the same type of guy. And I've learned I like a very different type of guy. So I loved that playfulness where I could see that as an opportunity to learn something about myself. And I wasn't attached to outcomes, and the stakes, like I said, were just incredibly low. I also really got creative with how much I liked kissing guys. again.
Okay.
Because I had kind of forgotten that. I had kind of forgotten how to kiss a guy. And my honeymoon stage helped me remember how to do that and how much I liked it. I
think is interesting about that. Like because my time, like my schedule is bananas. And so I would go through phases where I would have a stack of dates. Like
right.
I would go through like my apps, and I'd go through like Tinder or Bumble, and I'd go, okay, these 3 people have kind of got back to me. That's okay. So that means I have to do lunch and happy hour on Thursday and then something on Friday. And so you would kind of like stack up that way, and I'd do that. What it taught me is I had to really, and I actively worked on this, and I think that this is something people wouldn't necessarily guess about me. I had to actively work on my imposter syndrome, and that was my primary focus over the last couple of years, was working on my imposter syndrome and my self-esteem. Because my sister had phrased it really well after I had gotten out of this relationship, like the first boyfriend relationship I had after I got divorced. And it went awry for multiple reasons, kind of that primary thing of you convince yourself it's a different person, but it's really the same person in a new package. And you just explain to yourself why it's different, and it's not. And so I extricated myself from that relationship a lot sooner than I would have in the past. And I was proud of myself for that. But my sister's like, you should talk to your therapist again. I was like, why? And she goes, because you need to figure out why you always give these guys, as she put them, who are low hanging fruit. Why do you give them a shot when you should just go, this isn't going to work, or you should do better, or you deserve better? Why do you give all these people a shot? And I'm like, well, go ahead and preach. And she said, do not condescend. But I was like, okay.
Is she a big sister or a little sister?
Little sister.
Oh,
little
interesting.
Sister.
The little sister. The little sister's giving it to you. Okay. That's good.
So and she's my middle sister, so she's extra like, let me help fix you. So she, but she was right. And it, that really made me look at, well, what are you doing, and why are you in this scenario, and why are you like, and have it turned back into, well, you're allowed to want certain things, and they may be perfectly nice people, but that doesn't mean that you have to immediately, wifey up with somebody else. Like, okay, yeah, we went on some dates and that's all cool, but that doesn't mean that I don't need a boyfriend.
Right. It doesn't have to be more than just a date or a couple of dates. Right. Absolutely. And for me, I learned by doing. I don't know about you, but I'm a kinesthetic learner. And so for me, honestly, I received a lot of good practice opportunities by going on so many dates during my honeymoon stage. And I have dated a little bit in the last, year or two. COVID has adjusted that a titch.
Right. But
I still can practice by just conversation. You don't have to be physically in front of someone. Video chatting. You can stack video chatting dates too. That's kind of fun. But
have you done the full video chat where you like do the dinner where it's like they're supposed to
No. I can't.
My girlfriend's done that. She's kind of a fan.
That is so funny. I don't need to be eating on a video chat date. But what I was saying is that for me, like having that space where the stakes were low, where I wasn't wanting any substance really. I mean, I was wanting levity and the ability to practice and, to enjoy the creative kissing opportunities that I enjoyed, especially in cities like New York and Chicago. So
what's funny is that I like kissing people too. I just am very particular. And so if I don't like talking to you, you're not.
Oh, no. Clearly, no. I wasn't just like making out. No, of course. You have to have some type of chemistry and connection and fun. Absolutely.
I feel like you got to chemistry a lot sooner than I did because I'm like, I'm like, but I do think that it was also a good experience for me. I like doing the online dating because it made me really get better about preemptively going, well, what you want is just as important as what they want. So I remember that I would look at somebody's profile and I'd go, like, I would talk them out of me and I don't even know them. Like I would see some guy's profile and I'm like, oh, it looks like he has a nicer house than I do. So I would swipe left. Like, okay, like he's not going to want me because he's got more stuff. I was like, wait a minute. No.
You're Miss Shannon Paul. Come on now.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying, Sadie. Like, I should know that. But I had to practice and get to the point that I knew that because I'd go, oh, he looks like he's in better shape, or he's this, or like I would find all these reasons why they were too good for me, which were completely not true. Nor do I know them. I don't know what their type is. Why am I picking myself apart? So I took a step back and really worked on my self-image and me going, why do you think that? Like, first of all, he's a 45-year-old guy. He's supposed to have stuff, kind of thing. If he doesn't have stuff,
if he's living with his mom and he's sleeping on the couch, let him own his house. He's earned it.
Maybe that was her nice house. That I don't know. That was his house. Maybe he took a picture of his friend's nice house. I have no idea. So me attributing all of these things to these people.
Don't give guys ideas, Shannon. Don't do that. Don't give them the idea of their taking a picture of their neighbor's house. Don't do that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they've done that because I have even weirder things. Because again, I'm
that's
just
so funny.
I'm in some people's pictures because you know how they'll take it with somebody else.
Right.
I've had friends hit me up and go, hey, you're in this guy's profile.
Oh, that is hilarious. He's like, I'm with Miss Shannon Paul. I'm important.
Exactly. And I'm like, I'm not Beyonce. You can't already.
So you think clearly he begs to differ.
I was like, okay. I'm like, and then a bunch of people were like, why do you with that black lady? That's so weird. So how do we know her? And
so let's switch gears. Let's talk about something like a magical memory. I know you're living your honeymoon stage, and I know it's COVID-19, so that might be a stretch right now to have you share a magical experience. But I would love to hear it, and then I have a couple to share. But what would be a magical memory for you right now during your honeymoon? Any magic happening? I sure hope so.
I just before everything started shutting down. So at the beginning of this year, I did a lot more traveling than I had in forever. And I forgot how much I like traveling by myself.
It's so fun. You can do whatever you want.
Because when I was super single, I was one of those people that would just go, okay, well, if my friends are available, cool. But if not, I would just go and wander around. And I would try to go places that were not, hey, I'm going to get kidnapped as a tourist, obviously. But I would go. I went to New York by myself. I'd go to New York. I went out to LA again and wandered around. And I'm good at that. I know some people are, hey, I don't like to travel by myself and I don't have anybody to talk to. I have never had that problem. If I am sitting at a bar and I decide that I want to get talked to by somebody, and I'm not saying get hit on, just I can tune up my aura of availability and somebody will start a conversation. I'll know all about their kids. I'll know all about something happened. My Lyft driver, somebody.
Favorite color, favorite flavor ice cream. It's all going to come out. It's all going to come out.
Right. And so that part I really appreciate. And, honestly,
so the magic of travel, which we can't do right now, but in general, yes, absolutely.
And I honestly, this sounds goofy, but I am a collector of certain things.
Okay.
So I like that I can, go back to collecting these goofy things that I'm into and not feel like I'm wasting my money or somebody's looking at me funny because I'm filling our house.
There's no judgment. Exactly. Right. What would be, can you share a goofy thing that you collect?
Like the stuff that I have a sword collection, legitimately. And
as in fencing? You're a fencer?
No, I don't use them very often.
Okay.
I occasionally take them out of a scabbard and decide to. I have a couple of katanas with Jan. A couple of some of them are remakes of swords from the Highlander movie or Lord of the Rings. I have one of those, and so I just am fascinated by them and I enjoy them, and it's something that I've collected. And I started before I got married and took a big 7-year break, and then went back and slowly have added to my collection. So now I have 14.
Wow.
And
you're not playing. You're in. You're all in.
Oh yeah. And it's a weird hobby to have in that they're not super cheap. So that's the other reason why I'm so you have to kind of be picky sometimes. If you're going to spend a bunch of money on a thing that you just want to look at on a wall. But that's my thing.
But it's like art in a way. It sounds like a piece of art.
I agree. And
so you're an art collector in a unique way.
Right. And it's, and they're conversation pieces for me. And
I'm sure.
Off the wall people. And, if you think I'm scary because I have some swords, then you are the wrong friend. But, that part, I really like. And I'm really enjoying working on the projects I'm working on right now. I think I've always been a little bit of a workaholic. But that's because I'm interested in certain things and telling stories and learning about people.
Well, you're a Renaissance woman, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I would say that about you.
Thank you. Thank you. And the jobs I have right now all kind of lean into that. So I'm really enjoying being able to do that.
For me, during my honeymoon stage, the magic for me was actually doing nothing. Like the magic for me, because I too am very productive. I have like a monster to-do list every day. I'm
right.
Go get them. You know, I'm a business owner as well. And so I've always had to be internally very motivated, but I gave myself a break from that during my honeymoon stage. I decided I get to just enjoy doing nothing. And so I'd do new things like stare at the wall and it would be quiet and I would just breathe. And it was so good for me. It was so good for me because I never let myself do that before. And the fact that, like you said, I get to buy the swords. I get to do this type of trip. I got to do nothing. I got to just stare at the wall. It was magical, honestly. Or I'd sit in my nook and I would eat clementines and I'd stare out the window and I'd listen to Lionel Richie. I just play, I know, right? Penny Lover all night long. I mean, I would just listen to some Lionel Richie. Sometimes I'd journal about how I like to feel, but often I would just stare out the window and listen to Lionel Richie and eat a clementine. The best times in the nook doing that. Just feeling like I had that freedom to just breathe and be and not have to worry about being so productive. And it was glorious, Shannon. It was like some of the best of the best of the best times during my honeymoon stage.
I appreciate what you're saying. And my question, though, for you, Sadie, is that you're talking about all of those things in so past tense. So
I'm not doing it anymore?
Yeah. So how do we, like, if we use the terminology honeymoon phase,
I still do that. I just don't do it as much, but I still do that.
Like, does it have to, like, does honeymoon phase, does it have to be a finite quality?
I love that you are bringing this up. It's such a delicious segue. because I think things ebb and flow. I mean, I couldn't stay in that stage. I mean, I really let myself, I was on the path of least resistance. I was just going to do what was easy and breezy. I wasn't going to overthink things. I was just going to be. And for me, as being a business owner, you can only do that. You know, like I really just, I didn't push myself. I didn't set a million goals. I just enjoyed the moment. I was in love with the moment. And so that's an ebb and flow. But I will say my honeymoon stage taught me how much I like doing things like that. Staring out the window and journaling and listening to Lionel Richie and not having to be so hyper productive all the time. So it was such a gift to me to learn that about myself. Like, wow, I can actually do nothing.
Right.
Who knew? So
I think it's a fantastic transition because it, you know, when we talk about that honeymoon stage, I think it's because everything is a pendulum. So you might have that very like low right after you get divorced. And then you'll swing up and you hit that, you know, what I think you and I are both, you know, discussing today, that honeymoon phase where you're like, everything is amazing.
Right.
And you live there for a while, but it's not sustainable.
Correct.
Everything is amazing.
Correct.
Forever.
Just
and
like a stage in a romantic relationship.
Exactly.
But it can go back to that. Correct. Yes.
The day to day, does the day to day look like? And so I think you know, if I had to create what I think would be the on-ramp and off-ramp of that honeymoon stage, I would think that for me, it started at about year 3. And then year 3 was that year where I was like, okay, I get it. I'm going in the right direction. I feel where everything is. And I'm just, you know, just spending all my time crushing it. And then about a year, and then it was, okay, and now I'm into the maintenance phase, we'll call it, the maintenance phase of the whole thing.
Sure.
Where I'm going, well, what parts of that euphoria did I need right then? Like, you needed that. You know, I needed to feel, you know, like things felt so depleted for so long that I needed to feel that and allow that well to be filled back in.
Absolutely.
And now that it's full, I can go, okay, what's the next? What are these things where I'm going to maintain and water and keep? And because I tried a lot of things for a while. They're like, maybe I want to go back to playing sports. Maybe I want to, I tried to dabble back into some things I liked, like 20 years ago, single Shannon liked, and see if that's what it was, because I wasn't sure what I was still into, and some of those fit and some of them didn't. I was like you, I was doing all the things, I was trying to go on all the dates, and then when you're just filling your time with so much stuff, what are the things that you really want to keep? And now I think I'm in that phase more where it's like, okay, well now I dabbled here and I tried that and I poked around over here and that was all great. And it was, as you said, the word that you've been using a lot today. It was all delicious. But now I've just gone through and went, okay, now what was truly delicious and what was filler?
Right. What's going to stay and what's going to just be part of that season of my life.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think also, during this last year of COVID, I've had a lot of loss for different reasons. And, so this year has been more of a grief year for me. But I am so grateful and happy that I had my honeymoon stage because, and again, like I ebb and flow back into certain pieces of that. COVID makes it a little more challenging, but I'm so grateful and happy that I had that season to do those things, to just relax and get that energy back and not feeling like I had to hyper produce. And I know that my honeymoon stage is coming back to me. I mean, I can feel that again because it's like you said, the pendulum, we have to just be where we are and not force it. Mm-hmm. And I allowed myself for the first time in my life to really, really, really do that for myself. And it was the best thing I could have done. So
I'm really happy that I did a lot of the mental homework that I did a couple of years ago, because I think that it helped me pivot into where we are right now. Because I had my super down days, don't get me wrong.
Oh, we all have after a divorce, for sure.
I had kind of worked on some of these mental stockpiles when I was in that phase. So it gave me that bright light to not feel like every moment of everything we're dealing with right now is so dire, and to be able to have some resources,
some perspective.
Mentally, so here's how I'm going to navigate where we are right now.
And I think, for people who are listening, what I appreciate about our different experiences is that your honeymoon stage doesn't come at a certain time. It comes when it comes. Right. It comes when you're ready for it. And so if you're listening right now and you're experiencing your honeymoon stage, Shannon and I say bask and enjoy and eat it up and
soak it in. Soak all of it in.
Soak it in. Absolutely. And you've earned it. You just went through something so exhausting. Like just eat up the stage.
Here's the thing that I think is we want to remind people, though, too, is that it's difficult to find the right support systems. I'm glad you're doing this podcast. It's difficult to find the right support systems when you're going through a divorce. Like, there are more resources out there if your spouse or loved one and partner dies for you than there are for you going through a divorce. It could just be a very isolating time, a very questioning time, all these things that you're dealing with. So being able to listen to something like that and know that you are part of a community, I think is very good.
And quite a large community when you look at the numbers of how many people are divorced.
Like 39% now,
you're in good company.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and again, it's just really important for me also to say, and I know that you've shared this as well, that again, if you're not there yet, it doesn't mean it's not going to come for you. If you're in the midst of a divorce, you're just getting out of divorce, or you've been grieving since you're divorced, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean you missed it. Your honeymoon stage, it is on its way. It's coming to you. It's coming to you.
Agreed.
So I want to thank you, Shannon. I know time is running out here and I could talk to you for another hour minimally, but I want to thank you so much for being part of this show today and sharing your honeymoon stage and its deliciousness and all of your fun stories. It's been such a treat for me. And how can the listeners find you? Where can they go to find you?
The easiest way to find me, you can go to my website. It's Miss Shannon with an A. I always have to remember that. And all my social media is really easy to find because I'm Miss Shannon, MISSSHANNAN, all over your interwebs. So you just throw that into Google, find Shannon with an A.
Throw that in the Google. Just toss it in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Right. I loved sharing laughs and swapping stories with comedian Miss Shannon Paul today. We also want to hear your stories. How are you romancing yourself during your honeymoon stage post-divorce? Please leave your comments below or on our Facebook page at Sadie's Divorced and Happy. Please also be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. You can also learn more about the podcast at divorcedandhappy.net. I'm your host, Sadie Marie, and I'm so excited to connect with you soon on the next podcast episode. Until then, you take good care.